morning and welcome to RNL's 5th Graduate and Online Innovation Summit. I'm so excited to be here today. My name is Naomi Bressy and I'm Chief Revenue Officer at RNL, and I am delighted to welcome you today. The theme of our 2024 summit is motivation, modalities, and marketing, aligning programs with student expectations. You know, institutional health is increasingly reliant on meeting student preferences. Undergrad enrollment has slowed to a crawl, and graduate enrollment has returned to a modest rate after the growth and uptick from the pandemic. Students have many educational options available to them these days, and they can select from a variety of programs that meet their educational needs. During our session, RNL experts and institutional leaders will explore key elements that drive enrollment success in this challenging environment. Some of the topics we're going to talk about are knowing what you need to have in place to expand enrollment while increasing ROI, very important. 2, embracing innovation that helps you meet critical enrollment challenges. We're going to talk about something that's pretty exciting that RNL is going to be launching later this year. So 3, assessing and adjusting your program offerings to align with student demand. And last, using key performance indicators to measure success, optimization strategies, and keep your goals on track. One of the biggest highlights today is our launch session, one not to be missed. It's titled, Why You Won't Solve Today's Challenges Without AI. Artificial intelligence is here to stay and quickly changing how we address our enrollment challenges. AI is part of our everyday life, and this is a really important session, so I hope you make it. The potential to help students we serve goes beyond ChatGPT or Bard. When deployed strategically and responsibly, AI can ensure that marketing teams target and engage students in a more personalized and customized way. Recruitment teams respond to students faster and focus on things that require a human touch. In addition to this, academic programs can use predictive analytics to improve student success and retention. Throughout our time together, you will also learn how RNL is helping partner schools succeed. Our work leverages the latest digital marketing strategies and elevates recruitment to sophisticated levels that engage students and moves them towards enrolling. It also focuses on strengthening areas like instructional design and program mix so that you're offering the quality education experience students are highly seeking and deserve. Lastly, I invite you and highly encourage you to schedule a one-on-one discussion with one of our graduation enrollment experts on how RNL can help you and your institution. You can request a meeting through the chat or a link on the homepage of the summit. With that said, let's kick off the summit with our first session titled Must-Do Strategies to Win. I hope you find this session and all of our presentations today informative and inspiring. Enjoy the 2024 RNL Graduate Online Innovation Summit. And again, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Naomi, and welcome everyone to the first session for the 2024 Graduate and Online Innovation Summit from RNL. This is our 5th annual event, and we're so pleased that you're with us today. The session that you're about to hear is called 6 Must-Do Strategies to Win in the Graduate and Online Market. This is actually a distillation of 20 points of that institutions really need to have in place if they are going to, in a sense, win the student today. And when I say that, I want to point out that most of what we're going to hear today, most of what is in the full How to Win deck, and by the way, we'd be happy to present that to you and your colleagues on your campus, are all driven by what students told us in national survey work they expect demand and prefer from the institutions in which they enroll. I'm joined today by three of my favorite colleagues, each of which is going to introduce themselves to you as we get into the conversation. But I'm just so thrilled that we have these incredible experts, and each one of them is kind of playing a role today, if you will. My colleague Rena Lichtenfeld is playing the enrollment leader because she has been an enrollment leader. My colleague Emily Wood is playing the instructional designer because she is a lifelong instructional designer. And Andrea Carol Glover is playing the role, if you will, of the practitioner leader because she's led adult and graduate and online efforts at campuses throughout her career. And so with that, I'm gonna start our first point. Our first point is that expectations have changed because the generations have changed. While the undergraduate market has for quite some time now been fully Gen Z, the graduate market, as we documented in our graduate study this past year, has now fully shifted from a Gen X millennial market to being a millennial/Gen Z market. 65% of graduate students in the survey indicated that they are millennials, and now Gen Z outpaces Gen X. This relates to giving. That's not our topic today, but we always like to call that out because that is part of what RNL helps institutions with. But the real takeaway here is that these expectations the shift in expectations has been driven by this change, and it is all related to the technology that students are, the people that are our students today have been exposed to. And by the way, when we look at these logos or these icons for the things that have been impacting change, whether it be Netflix or Amazon or Starbucks or Facebook or what have you, actually there's an AI element. This is kind of the year of AI, and a lot of what has changed those expectations about speed, about personalization, and so on, is linked back to whether it be predictive analytics or other elements of AI that are coming to change things for us all the time. And what that has done is it has resulted in changes, whether it be the need for the expectation for a meaningful connection, the expectation for a speedy response, the focus on what I would call the ROI of their studies. Will they be able to get a job, or the other things? But these really are factors. And so what I would like to do now is I'd like to ask Andrea to comment from your experience. You know, you've been working with non-traditional audiences your entire career. So how have you seen this change of expectations play out?
Yeah, thanks for that, Scott. Indeed, I have been in higher ed for 16 years, and I have actually specialized in graduate and online education during that tenure. And so I've definitely seen things change over the years. I think one of the things that you had mentioned is that the expectations of today's students, which are increasingly the millennials, the Gen Z, have definitely shifted. And those shifts are driving everything. The technology that we talked about, I think about the pandemic and how that changed our buying behaviors and the leveraging of technology. I can't remember the last time I went and bought groceries myself. Think about the Amazon experience and things that you can get at your doorstep. And quite frankly, goods and services now are all delivered online or virtually. And because of that kind of world that our students are living in, their expectations are shifting as well. And that includes their educational experience, how they engage with prospective campuses, and what they expect once they start their studies, in the graduate and online space. COVID forced everybody into a non-traditional online model. While that may have been less than ideal, campuses have realized that flexibility that students are looking for is really important, and how they can really optimize the design and delivery of both how they're connecting with students when they're first raising their hands, as well as how they're connecting with them through that academic experience is very important. It's also important to recognize that these students are perhaps not as brand loyal as previous generations. So thinking about the point that you made, Scott, on personalization and customization is very key. These students expect that their campuses really understand their preferences and are delivering very targeted messages accordingly. They also want really meaningful connections, because that's how you build trust and an authentic relationship with them, that they would choose you. And by the way, if they're not happy with your experience, they'll let you know by either not selecting you as a campus, or they're going to tell their friends and family, leveraging all those social channels that they love so very, very much. So I think that's something else to be very mindful, is that they're very tech savvy. This generation is very much embracing a digital experience, and therefore campuses today need to be mindful of that, and that oftentimes traditional outreach methods, quite frankly, aren't going to cut it. And that is, part of what we're coming alongside campuses today and thinking about how we can create those customized, personalized experiences to really match the needs of today's students.
Absolutely. Folks, keep on thinking of those 4 boxes along the side, because as we get into the strategies, Andrea's done a great job at bringing these things together. But keep on remembering that professionalized experience, ROI, need for speed, and meaningful connections, because you're going to see them again as we work through these 6 strategies. Here's the first strategies. You must offer fully online programs, and classroom programs should also offer online courses. Why do I say that so emphatically? Because if we look at the data, this is not our survey data, this is national student, IPEDS data, NCES data, that charts enrollment by the format that the students have chosen. From 2013 to 2019, what we have seen most importantly is those royal blue lines, which are numbers of students that have chosen to enroll in all classroom courses. Those are negative numbers every single year. By the way, they look just the same for undergrad. This is the grad data. But in comparison to that, every year in that whole era, we saw tens of thousands of additional students enrolling in all online. Those are the navy blue or black lines, however you see that color, or some online courses and some classroom courses, the green color. And so that is really important. So what happened post-pandemic? Look at these data. We've charted the last 3 years in comparison to 2019, because we want to see what the after effect of the pandemic has been in comparison to pre-pandemic. Certainly in that first year, that's comparing 2019 to 2020, we needed a whole different scale because of the way institutions had to report students in all remote or online courses as fully on all online courses. But as we move forward to the 2019 to 2021 comparison and the 2019 to 2022 comparison, which is, by the way, the brand new data, we still see hundreds of thousands fewer students selecting all classroom courses, again, the royal blue line's going down, and still tens of thousands more students selecting either all online or some online. And all of these data reflect not total enrollment, but net new students by format. And so you may have, just last week, there were stories across the higher ed press that said online enrollment was down for the 2nd year in a row. How disingenuous. I'm sorry to be so forceful, but of course, down for 2nd year in a row. Of course, 3 years ago was the pandemic, folks. And so that's not a fair measure. Online is well in the lead at the graduate level. And I guess I'm old enough to sound that forceful about the issue. So I want to throw this to my friend, Emily. Emily, the transition to online has been underway, of course, for some time. We see it here in the data. But what do institutions need to do to stand out to offer the type of online learning experiences that students not only enroll in, but continue in and finish?
Sure, absolutely. So just drawing upon my years of experience, I've been working within higher education for the last 15 years. Started off as a tenured faculty member and transitioned about 10 years ago to instructional design leadership, faculty development leadership. And what I will say is in terms of getting them in the door, a big focus is on that return on investment, right? How can we help them see the value? Because that's how prospective students perceive quality, is where is this going to get me in terms of my outcomes for my career? And it's most often it's for the career, quite frankly. When they're in the door though, the meaningful connections piece takes over, and it's all about engagement. So how are they engaging with their faculty member or their instructor? How are they engaging with their peers? And for some of the best programs, even thinking about how are you building those opportunities for students to engage and build connections within an industry? So are you bringing in industry experts into your courses? Are you allowing them to have those opportunities where they're completing projects or assessments as they're working with industry partners? And those really are the ways that students are going to perceive the quality and want to continue on, is feeling that engagement and feeling like they are a part of a system that is going to pay off for them in the end.
What I love about that, Emily, is at no point in what you just said was it about an extremely specific topic of study, name of program, esoteric subject area, or whatever. It was about what you put in the program that will differentiate it. It's the focus on careers, all those things. I just love that. And this leads us beautifully to our second strategy. And the second strategy is that your online programs must be in high demand topics. Institutions should continue on. They should probably even make an online version of some of the programs that are near and dear to their mission and their values. But in order to pay for those programs, you need high demand subjects that can drive enrollment growth. And to that end, again, we're not using survey data for this one, but we're again using that IPEDS completions data by program. And so here are two things for you all to consider, folks. When you think about that issue of niche topics versus market leading programs, think about what your market share can be if you know that. Let's start with the fact that over 1,000 different program classifications, those CIPs, were used to report programs last year. More than 1,000 different subjects of degrees. But the 10 largest produced 30% of the enrollments, and the 20 largest produced 40% of the degrees. If you think about this in terms of business administration alone, produced 12% of all the degrees, over 100,000 degrees. Then social work, then MSN, then educational administration, management science. By the way, management science is one of the 3 or 4 CIPs that is being used to report business analytics programs, folks. So that really should read business analytics. Well, not exclusively, but what we're going to see in the next slide, it will give you some thoughts on one of those the newest high demand topic. Education is still producing a lot of degrees. It's in trouble. There are problems, but it's there, as is curriculum and instruction. Accounting, special education, and family practice nursing has seen this tremendous growth. Now, before I pose a question to one of my colleagues, I want to also show you what are the 10 program areas that have seen the greatest numeric growth over the last 5-year period. This is comparing 2017 to 2022. Look at what we see here in lead: management science programs and management science and quantitative methods programs, then followed by social work. But those 2 leaders have produced in excess of 30,000 more degrees last year than they did in 2017. I have already given you a hint, but both of those program classifications are used to report business analytics programs. If we were to look at that growth, 377%, 684%, what we're going to see is, just as business analytics took hold as a topic of interest, so did the growth in those CIPs. So while they're not specifically and only used for business analytics, what we can firmly rely on is the dramatic growth in those 2 areas has been driven by the way, a handful of programs that have really cornered that market. So if it's not just adding a business analytics program, it's figuring out how to differentiate your program. It's probably leading back to what Emily just said. So I want to pass this to Rena for some comment. Rena leads our consulting division at RNL, and she's on college campuses constantly. I'm surprised she's not on one today, but So Rena, in your work with institutions on annual marketing and enrollment planning, how have you seen the lack of market leading programs play out when institutions rely on online as the central part of their growth strategy?
Thanks, Scott. Yeah, worked 25 years in higher education and mostly in graduate and online, in business and actually all of the disciplines that you see on the screen. And it's interesting because, you know, it's like you'll have some institutions say, but we have a management science program, but we have a nursing program, but we have a social work program. You know, it's not like a, you know, field of dreams. If you build it, they will come. It really is about making sure that the competitive environment in your region is in demand. It's about understanding how you differentiate yourself from others that may be in the local space. Because Scott, we know from our data that even in online programs, the market demand is usually within a 50-mile radius of the institution, right? There may be some outside of that area, but we know that it is a local. So knowing your competitors, particularly in the area that offer online, is going to be important. But there sometimes feels like there's a rush to develop programs just to be in alignment with what you see on the screen because the numbers are compelling. But it is important to make sure that not only are you enriching the programs with major differentiators, understanding how you are competitively different than the neighbor down the street, also how you're marketing those demands is going to be important too. So ensuring that the market research is kind of first and foremost, the program demand is actually there is going to be super important. And then, you know, what's kind of out there also that we're not necessarily diving into here, but is important to look at is what is coming down the line in your economy, and how are you integrating those things into your curriculum. Artificial intelligence is huge right now. You know, I would say that, you know, is influpreneurship the next thing that's around the bend for business, and making sure that we're capturing those influencers in our Gen Z and our Gen Alpha generations. How are you on the cutting edge, even within these traditional areas and disciplines? I think those are the questions to ask as you're looking at, are we being competitive, along with other things that both Emily and Andrea have conveyed as well. So I'm going to throw it back to you, Scott.
Actually, let's go, Emily. This is your point.
Yeah, well, I'm so excited about this strategy because it really is all about calibrating your program design, which is a larger part of instructional design, to what the market wants and what students are looking for and prospective students. So the idea being here is, I've got 2 points, and we'll start off with this first table, that accelerated is the way to go when you're offering programs. It looks like not very many students, only 30% of undergraduate and 19% of graduate students are looking for a full semester program. And this is especially pronounced when we're thinking about the online space. Students today want to have much more accelerated term lengths, so they're able to complete courses that's going to work better with their life and with other things that they've got going on. For those of us who have been working with adult education, we know this to be true, that 6 or 8 weeks, it's easier for adult students to complete that. I think that that's an artificial barrier or artificial separation, though, because I think that folks who are looking to complete degree programs online, regardless of age, are looking for acceleration, because that will get them out into the job market faster, because they're able to plan their lives around it, and because they're able to have a really focused program of study in a shorter amount of time. So if you're not offering programs that are less than a full semester, students are going to look elsewhere, and you're only going to be able to capture about 30% or 19% of the undergraduate and graduate market specific, respectively. That goes into thinking about how students want structure as well within their program. So this is actually really interesting. We polled them and asked if they would want to have either more self-paced, more flexibility, so fewer deadlines within courses, or more of what we would think about traditional, with structured courses or with structured due dates within courses and deadlines. And the results here really are pretty mixed. So there's not a clear winner one way or the other. What that tells us is that students are looking for quite a bit of flexibility. So it goes back to what Andrea was saying about that customization and personalization. They want to have options for that flexibility and for them to customize their learning throughout their program, but are also still looking for quite a bit of structure. So as we think about what that means from a program design and also from an instructional design perspective within courses, how can you think about the way that you have consistency within and across courses for set deadlines, for set milestones, but then offer a good deal of choice within courses where it's appropriate for students to complete assessments on a timetable that might work better for them to choose the different types of ways that they want to demonstrate their learning, and even how they may want to engage with their peers or with their instructors. So offering quite a bit of choice within that, but still within a good structured environment, so all students can be successful. And, Andrea, I'm curious from your perspective, right, as the practitioner, as an administrator, does this resonate with what you've seen on campus, and how would students respond to programs that don't have these features in place?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, Emily, so thank you for that. So I think, working with several campuses and designing, I was counting the other day, close to 100 programs at all degree levels. This idea of making sure that design of the curriculum and the structure is so very important. And for many institutions, having kind of that traditional semester-based format doesn't lend itself well to that speed and flexibility that students are looking for. And so oftentimes, part of that hits on them choosing another option that is more flexible and lets them kind of move through at a more rapid pace, whether that be a 6 or an 8-week pace. It helps them kind of have those shorter back-to-back classes and not feeling overburdened, because they're oftentimes working while they're in school and they have families. So that flexibility and that course length is an important consideration, and what we've seen as a best practice in kind of the graduate online space.
So I'll take it up from here. I think, what's important to really take away from this is that, yes, cost is a factor, but the flexibility is definitely one as well. You can't put all your eggs into one basket is maybe another way to say it. Really the ROI, which if you go back to the very top of the presentation that we have here, return on investment, making sure that you are articulating what are you going to get out of this program, how quickly you're going to be able to get out of the program and put your new knowledge to work, whether you're a career changer or you are someone who's looking to move up. Those are the things that folks are going to be looking for. So that's where testimonials, that's where being able to get with the faculty who bring an experiential aspect into the curriculum and be able to really be forward with that with your prospective students and get it out there in your communications, your Conflow, your drip plan, into your marketing messaging, into your event planning. All of this is important when we're really saying that if you look at the very last item on here, cost of tuition was not a high priority. Only 3% said that. So cost is definitely a concern, but it's not the only concern. So we've got to be able to it's the three-legged stool. It's the old three-legged stool. Yes, there's going to be cost concern. Of course, there's going to be how quickly can I manage this with all the other responsibilities I have in my life? And then finally, what am I getting out of this that's different, that's going to excel me next to some coming out of another program? These are all the things that I think it's important for you as you're building your communication architecture, as you're building your recruitment plan, and as you're building more marketing message that goes out through social media. These are all things to keep in mind. Scott, I know we're getting a little pressed for time, so I'm going to take it back to you for our 5th strategy.
Exactly. And folks, by the way, just on this one, the question that we posed to them was, at the end of the day, how did you balance cost with other factors. Did you, I was just looking at the language, and so it was, did you enroll at the most affordable institution, or did you enroll at a program that was more expensive than some you looked at, but each of these? And as Rena has so rightfully pointed out, the thing that beat almost all of the other things except that quarter that enrolled at the the most affordable was flexibility and convenience. And so that it's the theme that has woven itself through all the points that we've made today. And here we see it at the most important point on how they make their enrollment decision. Now, our fifth strategy, folks, I'm just going to cover this quickly. And it is search engine optimization must be at the center of your marketing efforts. Why do I say that? Because we have asked a question about how did they locate their programs for all 3 years that we've been doing research in this audience. And we were most pointed this year. And the question was, what was the very first thing you did in your search for a graduate program? 40% said they did a search on a search engine. So if that alone would be enough to say search should be at the core of your strategy. The next question that we asked, though, was what was the next thing you did? And 52% more people said that a search was the second thing they did. So here we are, folks, at 92% of graduate students that really start their search by doing a search for a program, by doing a search on a search engine. Now, if we had our marketing colleagues here, there's a whole session on this afternoon, so we don't want to belabor the point, but a combination of paid search and organic search is probably an excellent strategy for an institution that has limited resources to dedicate to marketing, because while we know that 70% of students are more likely to go to the organic listings rather than the ads that are up at the top. We also know that among the 30% that say they click on an ad, one of the ad listings, they're more likely to say that they were able to immediately find what they were looking for. And that kind of makes sense. The folks that would go to the ad are probably those that are looking for an application or looking to fill out an RFI or what have you, and that's what those ads are designed to do if they're done well. And so I'm looking forward to having you all hear the session from our colleagues this afternoon about digital marketing strategy. But we did want to just touch on this, but let's move forward to the sixth strategy and of course our close. And so I'm going to pass it back to Rena because this is something that's near and dear to her.
It's very near and dear to my heart. Yes. Fast return times. We call it speed to lead, right? And if you look at the right side of your slide, you can see that 50%, almost 50%, 45% of your prospective students are expecting turnaround times within immediately seconds or within a couple of hours of the time that they ask for information back. Another 25% are looking for it within that 24-hour period. So that speed to lead is critical. It's important, and partially it has to do with how are you structured? Are you centralized? Are you decentralized? Do you have the capacity and the bandwidth within your organization to have the quick response time? If you have a CRM, depending on the type of CRM or how you have it configured, those quick responses can not only be fast, but they can also be personalized. They may be customized. So there's lots of strategy behind not only the expediency, but also the other aspects. The medium, are you sending it through text? Are you sending it through email? Are you calling folks right away? There's lots of different strategies in which to be able to heed the call to speed to lead. This data is undeniable. And when you're not responding, that also communicates something that is in the data that Scott has in the report. And I think it's important for y'all to be aware of that. Like if you're not responding in the time that they expect you to, they don't think that they're important, or they think that might be reflective of how they might expect to be treated within a program. And so these are important things. Emily, I'm sure you have more that you can actually suggest on that from once a student enrolls, what's the expectation?
Absolutely. Thank you, Rita. Yeah, the expectation doesn't change. So if these students want a very quick response when they are looking at programs and requesting information for programs, when they are enrolled and when they're in classes, they're going to expect a pretty speedy response as well. They'll probably cut a little bit more slack for their instructors to grade assignments and to get feedback to them. But the important thing is that they do expect that feedback. They expect it to be personalized, and they expect to receive it within a reasonable amount of time. What we advise, because I know that this can be a touchy topic for campuses, because it's hard to impose a 24 or within a few hour deadline for faculty to get back. That's not realistic. But what is realistic is for faculty that are teaching in online programs, especially because this is the main form of engagement, is to be very clear that this is when I'm going to get back to you on a response. If you ask a question, you can expect me to have this assignment graded, and you can have feedback within 48 hours, within 3 days, whatever it is. But if you are upfront about those expectations, students will know, and they'll have something that they can work with as they're waiting for a response on related to their learning as well.
Emily, I love that point there. And what I want everyone to pick up on is what you've said there in terms of how faculty and advisors and so on can pick up to manage student expectations is give them a time frame for a response if you can't do it right at the moment. And I've gotten a lot of questions over the years, and actually I've heard all of you say this also, so I'm piggybacking on what you've all brought back from campuses. So if we don't have a team that can respond within minutes or possibly even an hour, can we use an autoresponder email to patch? And what I say and what I've heard all of you say, one extent or another, is yes, but be very clear, be very prescriptive in that auto-responding email. Not only the thank you for your application or inquiry, but someone will be back to you, and ideally you wouldn't even say soon. You would say within the next business day. And that's probably the extent to which an automated email can help you to manage those expectations. All right, so we've gone through these 6 strategies. Now I want to close with just a little bit of data on why this is so important. If you've been to RNL webinars with us before, you may have heard some of these, but it bears repeating. And here's what we have. 46% of individuals where the response is slower than they expect think that that they are not important to the institution. That is a very important thing for recruitment teams to internalize. You do not want your prospective students to think that they're not important to you. 45% indicate that a slower than expected response is an indicator that perhaps they don't have the adequate support services. Now this when I saw these data, I was like, my goodness, that's dramatic. But as Paul LeBlanc writes in his latest book, Broken, he refers to it as our social systems have become more and more broken, more and more impersonal. There's been an increasing need among younger people, but everyone, in what he refers to as now the science of mattering. And this need to feel that they matter in the interactions that we all have is on the rise. And that really does link back to the impressions of our grad students in the survey this summer. So just that provides the urgency, I think, to some of this. 62% say that they will either likely, very likely, or definitely enroll in the first program to respond to their inquiry. That's amazing. In fact, folks, just the portion that is definitely I think it's 22 or 23%. Imagine if you could just corner 22% of your prospects by being that first person to get back to them. 64% say that a personal response to their inquiry is important or very important to their consideration of their program. So here we have the measure of the importance of the personalized response rather than just the response. And finally, 85% indicate to us that they will either likely, very likely, or definitely enroll at the institution. And I see Rena nodding because to the first program that admits them. And by the way, as we just remember, they expect that admissions decision within a week. If multiple parties are reviewing applications, and we know from our practitioner survey that was just published that the majority of grad programs are having multiple stakeholders respond to, revisions, that does slow down the process in many cases. And so we want to end with these just 5 data-driven points to the urgency of following up and following along with what we've presented today. And we just want to thank you for joining us. I want to thank my 3 colleagues here for their brilliance and their contributions to doing this today. We hope that you have a fantastic day. We're so looking forward for you to hear the leader of our AI efforts speak at lunch. My colleagues that are actually going to follow us immediately, that are going to talk about what you do when the program is the problem. Essentially, the product is the problem. And later in the afternoon on our digital marketing session and closing out the day. Oh, and of course, I'm doing this ad hoc, I'm out of order, but our session where we're going to have our 2 brilliant friends from outside RNL talk to us about the issues, how they're bringing innovation to everything that they're doing in their unique, very unique programs. Anyway, it's going to be a fantastic day today, and we're so pleased you're here and look forward to talking in the future. Thank you all.